You wouldn't think someone mixing up animal feed would need to be a data analyst, but get ready for a surprise. We're going deep on animal feed supervisors today.
Yeah, it's one of those jobs that's way more important and honestly way more complex than most people even realize.
I mean, we're talking the folks making sure that everything that ends up on our plates is, well, starts out right. Right. And we've got some interesting stuff from RoleCatcher about what all that entails.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just like shoveling out feet. These folks are practically scientists running tests on samples and making sure there's no salmonella contamination or anything like that, which obviously is a big deal when it comes to food safety down the line.
Wait, so I'm picturing, a dusty old factory, but you're saying they need lab skills? Like, how does that even work?
Well, according to RoleCatcher, animal feed supervisors are involved in the entire manufacturing process, from the raw materials coming in to that final bag of feed. They're monitoring production, making sure quality standards are met. And yeah, that means getting their hands dirty, literally and figuratively, with all sorts of lab work.
So they're actually, like, analyzing the feed itself. What are they looking for exactly?
A big part of it is making sure the feed hits very specific nutritional requirements. So they'll be checking protein levels, vitamin content, making sure there's nothing harmful in the mix. It's very detail-oriented. And it's not just about running the tests. They're also the ones who have to figure out what's going wrong if, let's be honest, if something can go wrong in a manufacturing plant, it probably will at some point.
Right, that's something I never would have thought about. It's like part scientist, part detective almost.
Oh, exactly. And to top it all off, they're managing the teams that handle every step of that process. So throw in leadership and communication skills into that mix as well.
Wow, okay, this is definitely way more than I initially thought. So they're managing people, they're analyzing data. What does RoleCatcher say are like the absolute must-have skills for an animal feed supervisor?
They say active listening, coordination, and monitoring are key, which makes sense when you think about it. You're in this fast-paced, maybe even chaotic environment. You're managing a team, dealing with these complex processes. Being able to listen to your team, coordinate tasks effectively, and keep an eye on everything that's happening around you is crucial.
It's not just about knowing about animal feed. You need all these other skills to be successful.
Yep. And it's interesting. When you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it makes a lot of sense. Because this isn't just any job, it's a vital part of the entire food chain.
Oh, absolutely.
What they do has a ripple effect, right? The quality of that feed directly affects the health of the animals, which then affects the food that we all eat.
It really puts into perspective how important they are. We always talk about farmers and their role in food production, but rarely do we think about, the people making sure those animals are being fed properly and safely to begin with.
Exactly. And it really highlights how much we need these skilled professionals like animal feed supervisors to make sure our food system is safe, and that it can actually function efficiently.
So, okay, we get it, it's important, but working in a feed manufacturing plant, I'm guessing that's not everyone's cup of tea. What does RoleCatcher have to say about the working conditions?
To be fair, they don't sugarcoat it. It's going to be noisy, dusty, and yeah, there might be some interesting smells involved.
Had a feeling you were going to say that.
Hmm.
But hey, at least it's honest.
Yeah.
And probably important for anyone considering this to know that going in.
Right. It's all about finding the right fit. And the plus side is RoleCatcher mentions that these roles are in high demand right now, which is always a good thing for job security.
For sure. That's a big deal, especially these days.
Exactly. And it seems like there's a lot of room to move up in this field, too. Those who really excel can climb the ladder, maybe even go into related areas like animal nutrition or even agricultural management.
So for someone listening who's thinking, hey, maybe this is for me, where would they even start?
Well, RoleCatcher seems to put a lot of emphasis on hands-on experience, which makes sense. It could be an internship at a feed manufacturing facility, volunteering on a farm, maybe even working at a vet clinic, anything where you can get a feel for animal care and nutrition firsthand.
Practical experience is definitely valuable. What about education, though? Is there a specific degree needed to get your foot in the door?
That's the interesting thing. There isn't really a one-size-fits-all answer. Usually a high school diploma is the minimum. But RoleCatcher does mention that if you have some relevant coursework under your belt, maybe even a degree in animal science or agriculture or even something like food science, it can give you a serious leg up.
So even just having that extra knowledge base can help you stand out.
Totally. Especially when it comes to things like analyzing lab results, which we talked about earlier, or even just troubleshooting those more complex production issues.
Hmm.
You kind of need that baseline knowledge to really
Wow,
excel.
like the more you know, the further you can go in this field, right? And speaking of going further, RoleCatcher mentions a couple of certifications that can give job seekers an advantage. Anything surprising in there?
Well, you've got your feed quality assurance certification. Makes total sense, right? Shows you're serious about maintaining those high standards we were talking about.
Right?
But then there's hazard analysis and critical control point certification, or HACCP.
HACCP. That sounds a little more intense.
It is, actually. It's like the thing for food safety. It's all about figuring out where the risks are in food production and then, keeping them under control. Actually started with NASA back in the 60s, believe it or not.
Get out. I had no idea.
Yeah, they needed to make sure the food they send up with the astronauts wasn't gonna, make them sick.
Makes sense.
Right, so having that certification on your resume basically shows you're really serious about safety and you understand the regulations inside and out.
Definitely a good thing to have then. But, okay, even with all the right experience and certifications, you still have to ace the interview, right?
For sure.
And RoleCatcher gives us a peek behind the curtain a little bit at what those hiring managers are really looking for.
They do, and one of the example questions they give is, describe a time you had to troubleshoot a problem with animal feed production.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
It's not just a hypothetical. They want a real example.
Exactly. It's your chance to show them, not just tell them, that you can handle the pressure,
Yeah.
that you can think on your feet.
Right, right.
Did you actually listen to your team to find the problem? Were you coordinating with different departments to get things back on track?
It's all about showing that you can actually solve problems, not just talk about it.
Exactly. And speaking of problem solving, this is where technology comes in, and it's adding a whole other layer of complexity to this job. They touch on this in RoleCatcher, but I think it's worth digging into a little more. Like, they even break down different levels of responsibility from entry level all the way up to plant manager. It's pretty cool, actually.
That's got to be super helpful for anyone considering this as a career path.
Yeah. But you're right, technology changes everything these days. So how is that impacting, the animal feed world specifically?
Yeah, how is it?
I mean, we're talking about automation in the lab with machines that can analyze samples way faster and more efficiently than any human ever could. And I'm not talking about something out of Star Trek here. This is happening now.
So instead of someone hunched over a microscope all day, it's more about managing these automated systems and understanding the data that's coming out of them.
Exactly. And that changes the skill set for someone going into this. You still need that base knowledge of animal science and nutrition, but now you have to be tech savvy on top of it all.
It's like the job description is being rewritten as we speak, almost. What other ways is technology, shaking things up?
Well, think about precision nutrition. That's becoming a big deal. It's this idea that we can tailor an animal's feed based on their specific needs, like down to their breed, how old they are, even the environment they're in.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Right. Sensors can track how much they're eating, even monitor their health in real time, and send that data right back to the supervisor, who can then adjust the feed formula, on the fly.
That is next level.
Yeah.
It's a far cry from just, mixing up a batch of feed based on a standard recipe, that's for sure.
Exactly. And it really highlights how important it is for animal feed supervisors to be adaptable. They have to be willing to learn new technology and roll with the changes.
It's exciting and a little intimidating at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like we're watching a revolution happen in how we produce food.
Totally. And like any revolution, the folks who thrive are the ones who can adapt and embrace those changes. It's not enough to just learn the basics anymore. You have to be constantly learning and updating your skill set.
It really is amazing to think about how much this job has changed, even in just the last few years. We went from picturing someone in a dusty old factory to realizing they're basically on the cutting edge of agricultural technology.
It really is a fascinating evolution when you think about it. And it makes you wonder, what's next? How is all this new technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all that, how is that going to change things even further?
Right. It seems like that's the big question in every industry right now, and agriculture is no exception.
Exactly. I mean, imagine AI that can create the perfect feed formula for an entire herd of cows just by looking at all this real-time data. Or even robots that could handle, the actual mixing and distributing of the feed. Who knows? Maybe that's not too far off.
It's mind-blowing to think about. And it's not just about efficiency and, doing things faster either. We have to think about sustainability, right?
Yeah.
How do you reduce waste, find new sources of protein? That's got to be a big part of it moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. As we get more and more concerned about the environmental impact of, well, everything really, but especially food production, animal feed supervisors are going to be right there on the front lines. They're the ones figuring out how to make the whole system more sustainable.
It's like this one job is at the heart of so many important issues, you know, technology, sustainability, and of course, making sure there's enough food for everyone.
It's a lot of pressure, for sure, but it's also a huge opportunity to really make a difference. And I think that's something that appeals to a lot of younger people going into this field. It's not just a job, it's a chance to be part of something bigger.
Absolutely. So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired, what would you say is like the main takeaway from our deep dive today?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that this isn't your grandma's agriculture industry, you know? The role of the animal feed supervisor is changing so fast, and it takes a really unique set of skills to succeed. You need the science background, of course, but you also need to be tech savvy, a good leader, and always willing to adapt and learn new things.
It really makes you appreciate everything that goes on behind the scenes to get food on our tables, doesn't it?
It really does, and it highlights how important it is to, support the people who are working so hard to make sure we have a safe, sustainable, and, let's be honest, delicious food supply.
Well said. So next time you sit down for a meal, maybe take a minute to think about all the people who helped make that happen, from the farmers to the folks working in the processing plants, and yes, even the animal feed supervisors, who play such a crucial role. It's all connected, and understanding that is the first step to creating a better food future for all of us. Until next time, happy listening.